See, all our viewers have known I've always had this secret mission, I guess, or desire. Because, we've been on TV, we've done a couple TV shows, but we get to play ourselves. So it's not that difficult. It's like it kind of took all the pressure off. But I've always said I would love to be in a great Western. And I thought, but not even to act. I'll be the first guy that gets shot off the horse. And I think it's because there's a redneck joke.
I think you could play that well, Joseph.
Well, there's a redneck joke that when you meet somebody or they're not very skilled or talented, and they'll say, "Man, you couldn't be a dead man in an old Western."
Yeah.
Play a dead man, because it's just. So I've always thought, but I kind of want to be a dead man in an old Western if it's good. But I realize even on our shows when we had extras, I realized that being an extra is the worst thing you can do in life. Because basically you're promised fame and you're going to be a part of this. But in reality, you stand around for 7 or 8 hours, and the scene that you're in behind the scene may not even make the show.
Yeah.
It's really just sacrifice, for nothing. But maybe the next Western you do, if there's another one.
If you need to shoot somebody, Jason,
because I got the
look.
look.
Put you up front.
Yeah, I don't mind. I just want to say that was me that got shot.
You'd be perfect in Western. The thing about acting is that you're always playing yourself. No matter what, you can't get away from yourself. You see Jack Nicholson, in a movie, no matter who he's playing, still you're going to the movies to see Jack Nicholson, or you're going to see Marlon Brando, or you're going to see whoever. You're going to see them do it. So don't try to get away from yourself.
Yeah, well, I like that. I'm encouraged that you're saying that because when I watched this movie, because I thought as many movies as you've done, because I just couldn't believe, you don't really realize it till you start going down the list. I thought, but you really captured Reagan. I thought whoever had that idea of casting you in that was brilliant, and I'm predicting right now that you will win some type of award for that. I'm just going out there on a limb. I was very impressed, but I was wondering how you did that in such a short period of time, because I've seen that you've been doing other movies. I was like, how do you become that character? You just stay up all night?
I actually had a long time with that. And, I say you're always playing yourself, but, when, especially when it comes to real people, the question in acting is, what would I do if I were this person in this situation? And I was offered Reagan, and I didn't say yes, and I didn't say no. He was my favorite president, greatest president of the 20th century, if you ask me. I idolized the guy. And everybody in the world knows Reagan, just like everybody knows Muhammad Ali. You sure that everybody has an opinion of him and stuff like that. And I didn't want to do an impersonation of him like on Saturday Night Live. When I play somebody real, whether dead or living, I feel a responsibility to do that character from their point of view.
Yeah.
And so I was lucky I had 2 years before we started shooting, as it turned out. And so I went to YouTube, and, I just did Reagan night and day, and really looked at the way he walked and stuff. If you ask me, he had a certain walk, and in Hollywood, they teach you how to walk. And you get influenced by other people's walks, just like it was a kid when I wanted to be Steve McQueen. And he and John Wayne had the same walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but there was a part of Reagan that everybody who knew him really well said was very, very private, that was almost impenetrable. And everybody felt it. This is the great communicator. So I wanted to get down to what that was,
Yeah.
And I think it's someplace it came from childhood. I think that was his eye of the storm of commotion around him, from his family life, where he went to for peace, even in the storm around him. Also, where he went to pray and to contemplate. and it's that was very key to me with playing Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
Oh yeah, that became.
Well, I think that was his, and the movie did a good job.
Yeah, because it kind of told it from that Russian perspective. But I was going to say one of the things I learned a lot from the movie, Dennis, because like I didn't know a lot about Reagan's early life, and I thought the film does a fantastic job on understanding the man as he was a boy and a young man.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really a powerful thing to help you understand the man he became.
Yeah. Was talking about that private place. He had an alcoholic father that, he had kind of a double-edged sword relationship with him. He really loved and admired him. His sense of humor, actually, I think he got from his father and the storytelling. But, that it was also was kind of a source of shame for him at the same time, I think, growing up. And, in that he became kind of protective. And his mom was his rock. Well, that's where Reagan and I had many similarities. I kind of grew up in the same situation, maybe not to the degree he did with his dad, but, my mom was my rock. That was for sure. We were both actors, and we both, I think, naturally have sunny dispositions to begin with. But I didn't say yes and I didn't say no, and because I wanted to be able to feel like I could get to him other than just the exterior, And I got invited up to the Reagan Ranch. This is about a couple of months into me making my decision, and it's not a tourist spot. This was the Western White House, where he and Nancy went to in the mountains of California. There, he bought that right after he was governor, and you go up 5 miles of the worst road in California, and you get to the top of the mountain and go through the gate, and came out into the clearing, and I got it. I realized that Reagan was actually a very humble man, and you could feel him there on the place because he really did do all the work there at that place. The house itself this is the Western White House, where the Queen came. It was maybe 1,100 square feet. They had a king size bed, he and Nancy, but it was 2 single beds that were zip tied together. And they had a little basket there remember back in the 80s when it took 3 remote controls to turn your TV on.
So you had to have a special basket for it. Yes.
Yeah. They had GE appliances because, he had a deal with GE, and Reagan was not a rich man.
Yeah.
That's, and that was not where his focus was. He really was dedicated to public service, and he was a great man. And I think that's what made him a great man.
Well, it inspired me in the movie because I didn't realize, I guess, since that was so long ago, at how spiritual he was, and
just that divine touch on his life, like the calling.
I think he felt that, and I think even in the assassination attempt, which we just had the same thing play out in real life, when
within the last month. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and all of a sudden we did a whole podcast on that. And I think somebody said it was the most watched podcast we had, released within a week. Cause we kind of focused on the human side of it. I was like, when you get shot in that setting, it makes you realize any human being, okay, I'm mortal, I'm going to die. And is there a God? And so that's why it was so shocking to a lot of people, but not to us, when the first couple of letters that former President Trump put out was all about God. And it was kind of like that. I forgot what movie that was. I think it was a comedy, but when they realized, hey, we're on a mission from God here.
Blues Brothers.
The Blues Brothers. Like it was all of a sudden, I felt like former President Trump was like, hey, God just voted for me. I'm voting for
I
him.
got something I need to do.
But
Tip O'Neill, in fact, after he realized that, he lived, that he said to him, he was saying that his life was no longer his own. It was for the man upstairs. Because I think when you get shot or even shot at like that, it focuses you on what is God's purpose for me.
Yeah.
And, that's staying focused on that. I think that's what Trump realized is too. I mean, I definitely saw it. You could see it in his face after that.
Yeah.
When there's a scene in there, Dennis, in the movie that where Tip O'Neill's in the room with him, and I think it shows you the different sort of part of it is the era. I know it's there, and then a lot of it was the man Reagan, but even this is his political enemy. But he comes in to check on him, and then they quote part of the 23rd Psalm together.
Yeah.
Right.
But I love that because the idea was, there was a time when you said, even though we have political enemies and we're still human beings. And it seems like now it's very difficult because even you bring up Trump or, whatever. And it's like some people we can't even figure out how to work together because it's like, no, you can't even talk about this. So it was a different time, but Reagan was a different man. I mean, he that's what made him so special, I think.
That was a time where you had liberal Republicans and conservative Democrats.
Right.
That demographic started to change after that and in the 90s. But, we all need to get back to that in a certain sense. I guess maybe the closest you could even come to that today would be like Joe Manchin, who was, but I would certainly like to see us get back to a dialogue about it instead of having to be so black and white. And I think that's up to the American people, is to, and tell you the truth, Republicans and Democrats, we need each other.
Yeah.
We really do. We need each other to kind of keep a governor on things going too much this way or too much that way.
Right.
Because that's where the American people are. I think the majority of American people are in the center. And this country was based on compromise. So if we can get back to just having a dialogue about it instead of just digging in our heels.
Yeah, and I thought one of the things that was really that I learned that I really guess I never knew from watching the film was how much communism and Reagan's seeing that early, as things were kind of percolating and what he saw in Hollywood and all these different ways, and how that shaped him is having sort of that common goal and the idea this is something that needs to be defeated, not just somehow we can live together, but it's like this has to be put in a place or else it takes away the freedom from everybody. But that was a really powerful theme of the movie. And I think the way it was made, the way you guys put it together was so powerful, even told through a Russian perspective. I thought John Voight was amazing in the film.
Yeah, great. That was a great way to tell that story, too, from like a Russian KGB officer's point of view. And you're right. That was it's kind of the overwhelming theme. And it's about survival. Yeah. In a sense, that's what World War II was about. That's how we came together as a nation in World War II to save the world. It was about survival. And the Cold War was going on. I'm sure a couple of you guys remember when we were in school and we had those drills where we had to get under our desk and, duck and cover and kiss your butt goodbye. That's right. For in case of a nuclear attack. It was very real time. We came very close to it, even during Reagan's time. Yep. In fact, during Reagan's time, it was just as much of a threat as it was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And but it took somebody like Reagan to win the Cold War. Jimmy Carter had tried to diffuse things. I voted for Jimmy Carter. Actually, he was the first president I voted for. It was post Watergate, and one I thought we needed an outsider and somebody that would bring that we could trust to bring trust back to government.
He was a Sunday school teacher from Georgia. I mean,
yeah,
and
that worked. I thought it worked really well when the peace agreement he got with Egypt and Israel.
Yeah,
with the Russians, the economy too, but with the Russians, he was like being a Sunday school teacher. We gave away the B-1 bomber. We gave away several essential things without asking anything in return from the Russians. And in the real world, Americans want to be friends, and in the real world, you get laughed at that way. They see it as weakness.
Yeah.
And they went and built their military up and their missile counts way up. And it took somebody like Reagan to come along and say no. He was the first president to say no to them.
Yeah, and I love that. He said he wanted to be the first guy to say "niet," and he did in the film, which is very powerful.
Which remind me again, I thought I saw some similarities. I mean, he didn't have that Trump attitude of saying what he's thinking every second, but these kind of things like I'll go make a deal. I mean, because really, with that whole Cold War ending the way they portrayed it, they just got into a room. First they tried it with the whole crowd, and he's like, "I got an idea." I love that scene. It was one of my favorite scenes when he wanted to have a take two reboot. I thought you did a really good job on that
really
without
good.
giving the movie away, and it just went down a different road from there in a personal relationship type of way, which is I mentioned this before you came on. When I watched that, when he gave that speech in Berlin, I just immediately, as soon as the movie was over, I was like, I want to watch that whole speech. So I looked it up. Obviously, it was everywhere. It was 26 minutes long, but I was really shocked at how the end, he started talking about love. And then he gave this picture of the cross that was a lot like the Romans 8. And I was like, where was I when he was saying that? I thought it's politics. I'm not interested, but I thought, man, what a speech.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
It was Reagan and the Pope who had also had an assassination attempt on him just, a couple of months from that. And like Valenza and the Polish people that brought it down. But, there are so many similarities to today's times. Back in 78, 79, we had oil. We had oil problems and stuff like that. We had hostages in Iran.
Yep.
Nobody talks about the hostages we have now.
Yeah.
That are over there. Yeah. And why is that?
Right.
The economy was inflation, 20% interest rates.
Yep.
Yeah, inflation. There was a feeling of malaise that we were a country in decline, right out of Jimmy Carter's mouth. In fact, and Reagan came along and said, "No, we're not a nation in decline. We're going this way right here, and here's the way to go." And he gave us confidence.
Yeah,
and there were those, and of course, a whole bunch of on the other side who called him a warmonger. He was going to get us into a nuclear war. He was going to destroy the economy with his trickle down economics. He was going to, all those things, all those things that he did with that in '84. He won every state but Minnesota. That was Walter Mondale's state.
Exactly.
So, he did a great job, but it took a cold warrior like him who talked tough.
Yeah.
Because they respect him too. And that's what Trump is doing too.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to bring up. It seemed eerily similar. It's like kind of the same problems, the same issues, and they even really captured the same opposition toward him. I mean,
Yeah.
it was pretty fierce. I mean, obviously,
Especially, and I think the movie did a great job showing the second term of Reagan, which really was a lot like the first Trump term in terms of a lot of scandal, a lot of political enemies, talk of impeachment, all the stuff was there.
Iran-Contra.
Exactly.
That happened. Yeah.
So I thought the film captured that really good.
Also Reagan's his attitude and his, when AIDS came along, he didn't handle that all too well,
right?
As well, which is, but he's a man. We portrayed him as a man. Nobody's perfect,
right?
But he had principles, and that's the way he governed, was with principles. And a lot of times, decisions you make based on those principles are not going to be popular, but those principles transcend political party.
Yeah.
And it's those kinds of principles you can find right there in the Bible that you're talking about. And, that's the, everything that's ever happened, anything humans have ever been through is right there in the Bible.
Yeah.
And there's a good lesson in the Bible just for every part of life. Doesn't mean that we like it or accept it.
Yeah.
But that's, it's there.
And sometimes it's not always pleasant to learn.